Hey, Jonathan, thanks for joining me on the show today. Hope you're doing well. Stocks are doing well. What's behind the gains?
Thanks for having me back. I think, we've seen a lot of volatility in this market. The same headlines that we've had over the last few weeks, and I know you and I continue to talk about that, are still here. We're still talking about tariffs. It just seems like the rhetoric now is aiming to a little bit more of a positive side than to a negative side. Clearly, as of yesterday, we've somewhat, for the time being, put the Mexican standoff off for a little while. Who knows when and how that will come back. But I think that was leading into the weekend. Those kind of headlines helped our markets propel to where we are today.
And now we know that guac won't be too much extra. In the meantime, retail options traders have reached a record or have traded a record amount of put options. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it all ties in once again to the overall sentiment, right? I mean, the headlines that we continue to talk about, and the headlines that continue to put pressure on our markets, tariffs, interest rates, oil prices, all these different things have forced investors to take a little bit of a backseat approach to this market here. So we had this nice little sell-off. You're never going to pick the top, never going to pick the bottom, but we did have this rebound that we're seeing now. I just don't think investors are fully convinced that this rebound is going to propel us back to where we were and get us to new highs again. We still have to get some more information about tariffs and how that is all going to play out. We have a sense of where the Fed is looking at this point, so I think that'll be somewhat that will be supportive of investor sentiment. And then at the end of this month, we have the G20, which will certainly bring some headlines and will certainly give investors a better idea, a better direction of where the next quarter will be.
Understandably about sentiment, do you think oil is oversold at this point?
We continue to go back and forth with oil, right? I mean, anytime it gets to a price where it's too low, we've got OPEC comes in with their headlines, and then anytime it gets too high, they do the same on the converse side. Right now, it seems to be stabilizing in an area where I think investors are somewhat comfortable, but that's just for now, right? That can change at any given point. Any posturing with oil has not been a top headline at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes back in another month.
Generally, companies that pay higher taxes have been underperforming. Are we pricing in a possible tax cut? Tax reversal.
I don't know if we're going to see that just yet. I don't think investors are that far, looking that far down the road as to how that's going to impact companies. I think, truly the headline that we continue to talk about and that we heard all throughout earnings reports from companies was about tariffs. I think that is really the one thing that companies and investors are and should be focusing on at this point.
Meanwhile, there's been a lot of mergers. One, for instance, Raytheon and United Technologies. President Trump made an interesting statement that he is against that it will defeat competition. Should we not celebrate mergers anymore?
President Trump makes a lot of interesting statements, and some kind of work well with the market and some don't. I think over the course of time, company mergers have been very profitable for investors and for the sector and for the consumers. I think we'll continue to see that. With the merger that we had coming into over the weekend, two huge conglomerates that are forming one big company. I think overall that's going to help everybody. You kind of can't get too far ahead of calling it a monopoly at this point. Go back to 2008, 2009, when we had a bunch of auto companies merge, and then also the airlines have merged over time. So, I think at the end of the day, it's what works best for the consumer. And when these large corporations merge, we hope that the trickle down helps the consumer. So I think we're going to continue to see more of this.
Okay, and Amazon, the most valuable company in the world. Do you see any kind of, breakup happening within Amazon?
I don't think we're going to see a breakup. I mean, their hands are tied into so many different things right now that directly help the consumer, right? As opposed to a conglomerate like GE back in 20 years ago that had investments in many different areas and many different industries and had to somewhat silo them off. I think Amazon right now is just trying to be a part of everyone's life in every way. They're doing a very good job doing that. From the consumer point of view, they're making it much easier for people to purchase goods, what they want from anything across the board, and they're getting to so many different areas. And anytime any other company has a good idea, Amazon tries to beat it. So I think we're going to continue to see them grow. I think we're going to continue to see investors feel much more comfortable in that stock, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on some of the other sectors that they are involved in.